Welcome to Seeking Alpha, the podcast where we're diving deep into crypto, careers, and the chaos of modern dating. I'm Larissa Bunziak.
And I'm Lindsay Poss. Together, we're two women who somehow found themselves at the intersection of crypto Twitter, Silicon Valley, and Tinder.
Hey guys, it's Larissa. Lindsay is on a sabbatical in West Virginia with her cousins. And if you don't get that reference, you should listen to our past episodes. There's literally only 2 of them. So on Seeking Alpha, we talk about crypto, careers, and dating. But also, it's our show, so we can talk about literally whatever the fuck else we want. And today, I want to talk about justice reform and how tech can improve it. In this episode, I'm talking with my friend and former colleague, Jason Jones. Jason and I met while we were working at The Last Mile, a nonprofit that teaches people in prison how to code and helps them get good jobs after prison so that they can avoid recidivism, aka returning to prison. Recidivism is a huge fucking problem in the US. We spend over $80 billion locking people up, only for it to fail over 60% of the time. The recidivism rate in the US is over 60%. Jason himself was incarcerated for 13 years, and he's now been home for 6. He owns 2 businesses and is committed to making an impact for others in their reentry to society after prison. He has a ton of wisdom, and I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation, and more importantly, I hope you learned some things. Jason, thanks so much for coming on the pod.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is definitely an honor.
Oh, come on, Jason. I have like 1 listener, maybe, and it's myself. So don't be too honored yet.
I feel like you got to get it popping, so don't even worry.
So my co-host and I have recorded a couple episodes, and we decided to do guests like mixed in, and you were the first person who I thought of when I was thinking of who to interview who would have like something cool and valuable to say. So that actually is an honor, so you should be honored.
Hey, well, I hope I don't disappoint you today.
Oh, no, you can never. Okay, so let's just start with you talking about who you are. Who are you, Jason? And what do you do?
Okay, so my name is Jason Jones. I feel like I have a unique blend of experience in my life. A couple things about me: I spent 13 and a half years incarcerated. Been home for 6 years, and since then, been really pouring myself into the reentry social justice space and learning about technology and business and how all these different systems and spaces connect with each other or can connect with each other. Doing a lot of focus on helping underserved communities. I have co-founded 2 companies since then, one being an entertainment company called Everything Entertainment, where the focus is really subcontracting and upskilling folks that's coming home from incarceration and young people. And in the same token, a tech consulting company called Disrupt to Innovate, which is on the same vein, really focusing on upskilling young people and people coming home from incarceration and trying to help them with new opportunities.
Okay, that is very cool.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot of work with Reentry. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so, when I first came home, I was working for a tech company, and I started working for a nonprofit that teaches incarcerated people how to code. And eventually they opened up a reentry department, which really caught a lot of interest for myself just because I was in my own reentry. And I was always immersed in tech and business. And I was always in the market of tech and business. I seen a lot of opportunities where technology can impact my reentry, but it just wasn't products there. So it always caught my interest, the reentry space, the social justice space and whatnot. And so now the work that I do is in the same vein with a lot of consulting with either nonprofits or social justice organizations with a focus to help integrate technology or help upskill them in their technology so that they can have better outcomes and help them track data so they can make data informed decisions. For instance, I'm consulting with a county about building an AI product to help with the integration of some of the grassroots organizations already in the county that should be working together and they don't know how to work with each other. So we're using AI to give ideas and pitch ideas of how the collaboration can happen based off of their OKRs, their goals, just things that's in alignment with it with both of their models and based off of available funding.
Okay, that is really fucking cool. So your reentry was 6 years ago. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. Let's go ahead and finish your question.
Yeah, can you talk about your reentry and some of the challenges you faced that you are now trying to address in the work that you do?
Oh, man. So 6 years ago when I reentered, I felt like my reentry was very different because Reentry wasn't an industry. Reentry was a very new space, and now reentry is an industry where like a lot of
Is it
people.
it's an industry?
It's an industry now. It's an industry. So like VCs are like jumping on it, and like these big corporations are jumping on it to figure out like what product and what marketing strategy they can use to get data from this population. Because you have to understand, laws change. It's a big influx of a community of people coming home. To them, business wise, that's a new market, right? So and then it's one of the top markets to penetrate, like hardest to penetrate for Fortune 500 companies also, right? Even though like I feel like the first couple of things that anyone do is either go to Walmart or Target. Yet, I mean, they don't have nothing there to receive us. You know what I mean? So I think when it comes to reentry, it looks a lot different from
Wait,
when I came
wait,
home.
wait. So sorry to interrupt. You said
Yes,
one of the first places that people go when they leave prison is Walmart or
Walmart or Target.
Target?
Yes. So like for instance, right? So part of the data that I've been tracking is that like the top two places that people go is Walmart or Target. Obviously, people come home, they need socks, they need drawers, they need clothes, they need hygiene, things like that, right? And this is the thing that we know. Yet that data is not given to Target or Walmart to be able to use to create sections. They have sections for communities of people all throughout their store except us. And so it'd be really cool to have a section there for folks that's coming home of essentials that you know that they're going to need that they might not even know that they need.
Right.
So,
And that's, yeah, a huge population.
yes.
That's so interesting. I have only really thought about it as a community problem and not as like a business opportunity, but I guess they kind of go hand in
Absolutely.
hand. I mean, problems breed opportunities.
Well, that's why so many VCs in this
But
space now, right? That's why it became an industry because the opportunity for businesses.
yeah, but how do you feel about that with people trying to monetize
I
the
don't.
very challenging experience people have coming out of prison?
Well, that's the whole reason why I'm doing the work that I'm doing, so that we have stake in this. I feel like the industrial age came, and a lot of folks, meaning like black and brown folks, people that have been oppressed over time, have always been left out of the different industries. And now the tech age is here, and we've been kind of left behind on that. So when it comes to like just businesses being set up, monetization of like our experiences of life coming home and reintegrating, I understand why it's happening, and I think that some of the tensions are peer. People like every community needs infrastructure, and like this is a community you're talking about of people that don't have no infrastructure at all, right? And that don't know that, and a lot of them don't have the experience to live in society yet, and they develop in that. So it's almost like they building the boat and selling it at the same time. And when it comes to like create businesses, I think that one thing I would like to see, instead of VCs coming in here to find investments for like corporations or whatever it is, I would like them to invest in our community. It's a lot of like small businesses and startups that people are trying to get off the ground that's formerly incarcerated, and a lot of the jobs that's going to be created if they do get it off the ground is who you think they're going to employ, right? It's going to be some of their own community, right? And the problems that they're going to solve, what problems you think this most familiar with them is the problems that they're facing. So I would like to see a shift that way. Right now, it's not. It's kind of shifting the other way, and we're losing traction.
What are some tangible examples of problems that people coming out of prison face that can be solved with businesses or innovation tech?
Yeah. For instance, in California, CDCR and the parole system do not share any information. Meaning, all my classes I have took for self-help inside, my certificates and everything, do not get transferred to my parole agent who's in charge of me for 1 to 3 years, depending on my parole, right? And what
Why
happens?
not?
And what happens is that they mandate me. Like this is a real life story. Like they mandated me to take domestic violence courses, right? And I was like, domestic, I don't have nothing on domestic violence. Like, why would I have to do that? And this is the pro was telling me at the time. And it was like, oh, well, you need to take anger management. I was like, well, I took anger management inside. I even like taught the classes. I got my certifications for it, right? And then,
Yeah, you literally taught the class in
yeah,
anger management. Why
yeah,
would you need to take the
yeah.
class
And I was
again?
just like, this don't make no sense. And then they kept on forcing the issue, and I had to like do a grievance and write to Sacramento about me having been forced to take domestic violence classes, but I don't have no history of domestic violence. And so they came back and it was like, oh, you don't have I think it was like 1170 or something like that. I guess this is a code for domestic violence. I'm like, no. They're like, oh, well, don't worry. And they was trying to put me in there for, so domestic violence classes you have to take once a week, every week for a year, and you have to pay $50 a class. I was like, that's crazy. I was like, I'm not supposed to do that. I don't even have to do that. Deal with that. And it took for me to fight against it. And it's things like that. Like they trying to get like butts in seats instead of like actually addressing it. Like if they would have been able to see like some of the work that I've done inside, they would have seen all that, right? But they got like a cookie cutter solution method that they go about it, where it's like if you have any kind of violence, we wanted you to do these things right here, and it doesn't really make sense.
So that is, yeah, definitely something that can be innovated on. Some of the people who I've spoken to who've re-entered have opened my eyes to how much society has changed since, decades ago. And it's ranged from ways from like smartphones, obviously, technology, but also like happy hour and stuff. I did not know that that was not a thing forever.
Yes.
Can you talk about some of the stuff that, like one of the most important inventions in society, happy hour?
Yes.
Can you talk about some of the most shocking or surprising things that you learned about once you got out?
The most surprising relationships. That's the most surprising.
How they changed?
Nah, you just don't. Inside the prison, you'll never get an opportunity to work on healthy relationships outside of your cellie because you're with them all the time, right? Outside of that, like once you step out of the cell, like the politics, the environment, things that you got going on, your head, things that's going on, like all that stuff take precedent. Like a lot of stuff, um, you know, you can miss, but um, you don't really get to like build like strong bonds unless you spend time with someone, right? And so when I got out, I thought like, I was good at like just building relationships, whether it's like work relationships, platonic relationships, intimate relationships, whatever, friendships, whatever. And what I realized was just I really lacked experience when it comes to friendship, like having an active friendship or any kind of active relationship, because it was just things that happened that I felt like would have happened in my younger life if I was outside. That I just was exposed. It's just certain situations you just cannot recreate inside a prison, right? You just can't.
Yeah.
Like if somebody spent, I got a brother that went in at 15 years old. He got out at 40, right? And
Yeah. How the fuck do you adjust to life?
right, you didn't even go. You didn't even get a chance to go to a high school dance. So now you talk about going to happy hour with your coworkers at a club, right? Like those things,
Yeah.
those social environments is just like you can't recreate them in prison necessarily. So like, how do you know how to be in them? And if you do recreate them in prison, it is so many rules that govern just natural interaction. You feel me? Just it's just
Right.
like the concept of over familiarity. I think gets dragged on a lot and gets like sensationalized when it comes to prison, where it's like that's the only place it actually exists. You feel me?
Yeah.
And I would
No,
argue
that,
that if you volunteer to come help and set up self help groups, you should be one of the most familiar people with us. If you're here to help,
yeah. So I want to talk about how people get into prison and some of the more non-intuitive ways that people are there, because I can see somebody listening to this right now who has no idea of what goes on in the justice system and thinking like, well, fuck them, they're in prison. Who cares if they don't have healthy social interaction? Who cares if they don't have good relationships after, because they're criminals? And obviously that's not how I feel, and not how any informed, rational person should feel. But
okay, let's talk about that. So you know what I would say to that. You are so for people that say that, like I understand that perspective completely. I do. However, I went to prison right for shooting someone that molested my daughter. So I was out of my daughter's life since she was 1 years old till I came home, right? And I still, me and her distant, like we see each other here and there because the relationship was so messed up. And I get out, and as a father, I want to be an active father. You know how extremely hard it is to understand how to be a father now in society. Because I'm a father now at 41, opposed to when I was 16, first with my son, and then like, going to prison early at a young age, all that stuff like that. So I missed all that part, right? And it wasn't really, I took a parenting class in there too, but they don't really teach you how to like deal with like real issues. Like when I came home, my daughter had a lot of issues with me being gone all that time. You feel me? And it was
Right.
really hard to navigate that space and not cause any more harm than I already did by leaving. You feel me? So it just, I think when it
Right.
comes to relationships, and then also one thing I didn't consider is that while I was in there going to classes, working on myself, her mother wasn't, and she wasn't finding no healing either. So it was just a lot of things that I had to like, a lot of relationships I had to jump back in, and no matter how much work I put on myself or did for myself, it didn't matter. Like all that stuff went out the window in certain situations just because life was real. You know what I mean? And then same thing with my son and my youngest daughter. I didn't meet my youngest daughter in person until I got out of prison. I found out about her when I was inside and had a DNA test, right? So it was just a lot of things. It was just like a lot of challenges. And then like you get out, whatever relationships that you had in your life that was unhealthy, you have to figure out a way when you get out to either, if you haven't already before you was inside, which most people don't because they're looking for anyone to attach themselves to on the outside that can that can keep their sanity, right? Um, but one thing I didn't account for is that like nobody out here did the work, and I had to repair a lot of relationships and do a lot of the work, even if the other person is not working. Like my mom, my sister, my brother, all these different people that was impacted by me leaving out of their life.
Yeah. I mean, the expectation is that people will come out of prison and be ready to be
Yeah,
productive members of society. And how is that supposed to happen when it's so challenging for them to socially reintegrate
yeah. Like the
into the
groups,
lives that they had before?
absolutely. The groups that's in prison, they teach you about your crime. They teach you about your past, how to pinpoint things in childhood, things like that. Stuff that's good that really I feel like a lot of people, everyone should learn. However, they don't teach you how to apply none of those things in the real world. Right? They don't teach you real
Right.
situations. They don't teach you like even when I came home, one of the things that scared the hell out of me, especially because all the news, man, getting pulled over by the police. And I remember getting pulled over by the police on parole, and I was scared to death. And I was completely legit. But it was just like I seen so many shootings. I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on. How do I navigate this? Who do I call? You feel me? Like it's stuff like that. And like if you go on 15, 30 years, anything like that, like it's a whole new system. All these systems that you was subject to, all these have changed. The only thing that haven't changed is your experience.
Yeah. I remember I was running a course in a prison in Philadelphia and talking to somebody, and he had been incarcerated a couple of times. And it was actually a jail that I was talking to him, and he was back. And he was saying that you can't go into you can't live in Section 8 housing if you're on parole. And his entire family lives in Section 8 housing. So when he got out,
Yep.
he went back to the people that he knew, which were his friends, his family. Obviously, he can't live with them because of this rule. And so what is he supposed to do without any money to his name? He
Yeah.
got back involved in drug dealing because, like, what the fuck else is he supposed to do if he
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
reintegrate into his friends and family? But, like, also, like, if it's not a healthy community for him,
Yeah.
um, what else? Because like halfway houses, do those work? I suspect not.
You know what
So like,
works? You
what
know
is
what?
the hmm?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Ask your question.
No, but like, what does work?
Community. I feel like that's what people don't understand. Like the people that do have resources for us right now, they're not building no community around it, and they're not helping us build infrastructure. I think they need to invest in us and not just market us. I feel like a lot of organizations market us without investing in us, right? And I think once you start investing and focus intentionally on empowering us so that we can own our own reentry instead of being subject to the resources that's in our reentry, I think it helps out a lot. Imagine this, right? You know how Yelp works, right?
Of course.
So this is one of the products that my company is building. Imagine if it was the users on there was only people that was impacted by the system, and the things that they was rating was only the resources that was available for them, and all those resources will only get their funding based off the ratings of the people. I guarantee you it'll be a lot more impacted and a lot more infrastructure will because at the end of the day, this is what the reason that it's a problem when I say it's an industry, because when it becomes an industry, it's always about the bottom dollar. It's always about the return on investment. right? Whether it's social capital or actual capital, right? And so since reentry turned to an industry, that's what they're focused on. They're not focused on impact, right? If you was focused on impact, then a lot of stuff that you see will be very different, and the people that you will be focused on, like putting the shine on and like really pulling their ideas from, will be people that's impacted.
So you think that people should be rated like Yelp?
I don't think people should be rated like Yelp. I think that the
Oh,
resources.
okay.
I think that they should allow us like
Oh, resources,
so
resources.
like
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
if it's a transitional home, if I come on to a transitional home or your friend come on to a transitional home and they have whatever resource they give them, it's no
Got it.
place except his friend group to go have a grievance about it, to impact anything, to say anything. If you have a positive experience, it's nowhere except his friend group. And the thing that people need to understand is how we receive information in prison or just amongst in our community is through an oral tradition, is by word of mouth. That's how we receive news and information. When before we even apply for any self-help group or a transitional house or anything like that, the first thing we're gonna do is go find someone that we know that either knows someone that also went to that group or used that resource and their experience about it. If their experience was trash, we're not even gonna be like, fuck it, we're not even gonna sign up. But if they had a good experience and they could link you into some other people, that's why a lot of people that come out of prison is great networkers. It's because that's how we network. We network amongst each other, right? And so I think that if we had a way to like really rate the services that's supposed to be for us, we don't have a way. So that's one of the projects that my
Right.
company
Okay.
is
Yeah.
working on right now.
That's amazing and makes all the sense in the world. I'm sorry, I misunderstood you the first time. I thought you were suggesting some like
No,
socialist China crazy
no,
bullshit,
no,
like that Black Mirror episode where they like literally like rate people. Okay,
no,
I was like, wow, Jason, it
no.
really has been a long time since we've spoken.
That's
Okay.
funny.
That yeah, I would if I had any angel money to invest, I would invest in that
Yeah,
because that makes all the sense in the
yeah.
world. Because there really is no accountability with
It's
these
not
programs, and like all you can trust is that there's goodwill. But like, why would you trust that any human
exactly.
has goodwill? You know?
It sets up other. I think it sets up other opportunities too, right? Because if you incentivize the organizations that is making impact, that's constantly getting top ratings. Not only can you send that list of organizations into the inside of any incarcerated setting, so they can prepare based off of like the top rating from their own peers, but you also can open up a portal to the private sector, so they can give special impact grants do philanthropy work for these organizations, right? To help offset some of the costs. So it's a lot of creative things that you can do once you set up that infrastructure where you pull in data from this population. And I'm gonna keep it real. Like the reason why they don't have no data is because we're not gonna do no 5 minute survey. We're not. After we get off the phone, we're not gonna do the survey. If you send me an email, I'm not gonna do a survey. But if it's a resource on an app that I can go look for, and I know this app is for me, and I know that people that I know use this app, and I can go to it and see their comments, I will use it and I will leave a comment. Especially if I know that it impacts a company's funding.
Yeah, and there's no reason why you can't get like a $5 Amazon gift card or whatever
Man,
for doing it.
man. Simple stuff. Simple
Like,
stuff. Get your points. Get Amazon
yeah,
points and then use those points for purchase. Like, it's a lot of stuff things you can do. You feel me? It's a lot of different things, different ways you can integrate a lot of different businesses that's already in this space and that's scared to even hire anyone that's formerly incarcerated. Don't worry about hiring us. Invest in us. And we'll hire each other.
amazing.
Yeah.
I want to, though, talk a little bit more on how people end up incarcerated because I think that such a I mean, I know that a massive misconception and a massive issue that fuels the incarceration cycle is that people have this preconceived notion that everybody in prison is bad, just not worth giving attention or energy or funding to. And obviously that is so far from true, but there's just this connotation. And the reality is that 5%, what is like 4 or 5% of people in prison are actually like very violent
Yeah.
serial killers or murderers, something like
Yeah.
that. The majority is for drug dealing and then various other things. But like, so for additional framing, I was speaking with a friend recently, and he isn't even entirely removed from the justice system. He had a family member who was incarcerated at one point, and I think they cut ties. But I was defending the incarcerated population to him, saying that, like, you do not understand why people are there. like the majority of people are there for nonviolent offenses. Also, like, you could have easily been in prison. Like, I grew up with you. I knew the fucking shit that you did. I could have easily been in prison so many times. Like, I skipped school regularly because I didn't fucking want to go. There are people in prison, there are people who've served time for truancy. And then while you're in jail for truancy, somebody attacks you, you defend yourself, and then like it's fucking game over for you for the
Yeah,
rest of your life. And with the three strikes law, like people getting life sentences
man.
for fucking misdemeanors, like it's disgusting, it's nauseating.
My first cellie was struck out with 55 years of life for possession of stolen property for a saw in the back of his truck.
Like it turned my fucking stomach. And then people are like, why do you care about prison reform? What would you say to the notion that everybody in prison is bad?
I don't know. I feel like everybody's normal. I feel like everybody's just human beings, right? I feel like you get put in certain situations as a human being, and I think some people, I mean, everyone respond how they respond based off the experiences in life, right? If you grew up in a healthy environment where you had examples to teach you, and you had other, I don't know, things around you and people around you to help you navigate life, I think that it makes it a lot easier to make sound decisions or better decisions for your life, um, especially like given that you're not in survival mode or anything like that. But for some people, that's like in survival mode that grow up in it. And when I say grow up in it, like grow up being an adult, having adult problems at a young age when your brain's not even developed, right? Like how can you say that person is bad because of the behavior that comes out of the situation, right? Like I look at it like this. It was a lot of so when I went to prison, my views on people on when it comes to sex crimes was very conservative, right? Very very conservative, and I still have some my own opinions about some things, but I have a way better understanding, right? Remember, like I shot someone for molesting my daughter when she was 8 months old, so like, and it wasn't until like my 12th year I was inside that I really like started to understand or seek understanding, I should say, about some of my decisions, right? And the reason was um, that someone asked me how do I feel, how do I think that the person that I shot, how their mother feel, and at the time I don't care how she feel at all. I don't. Like if she's mad at me, then there's something wrong with her because her son is crazy, he's sick. That's what I said. And this is in a group, right? And so ever since that day, the people in that group that I said that like some of the OGs had took me under the wing. Still to this day, some of them are out, and we still have conversations about that. And that's what really shifted my mind. So when I came home, I was open. I was open minded enough to stay in a situation that had me uncomfortable because I know that's where growth happens. And what I mean by that is I was teaching a class that was a youth class, and half the students in there had sexual offenses. Right? I didn't know that my first month teaching them, and I didn't build bonds with these kids. Right? And I was like, oh man, right? And then like getting to know them more, I started to realize that a lot of them was victims before they was even perpetrators. And then I started getting more about like the science behind it. I'm like, oh, okay, I have a totally different perspective on it. I have an understanding of it. I don't condone it. I don't agree with it. But I do think that there's other ways to handle situations now, right? If I had to go back and relive the incident that sent me back to prison, I wouldn't do what I did, not because I did time behind it, because I didn't care about the time. I knew that possibility I could get a life sentence. I didn't care at the time, right? So that's not the reason I wouldn't do it no more. The reason I wouldn't do it because I understand the situation. I understand what my daughter needed most now was me being in her life and staying there and helping her heal instead of re-victimizing her. And after after she was victimized from what happened, re-victimizing her by her losing her daddy out of her life, right? Like I didn't understand that impact. How long I was that was a selfish decision, right? And so when you talk about like people are bad people, people are put in bad situations in life a lot, especially in our new society where um, technology and COVID and all this stuff created all these different markets and like people being left behind and homelessness and all this stuff is at an all-time high, and like people trying to figure it out, right? So people is going to respond based on their experiences in life and what they're exposed to with resources they have, right? If you never was shown to respond in a healthy way, if you never were shown to be a mother, and you were a mother at 16, like how would you be? How do you know how to be a mother, right? And you never had a mother around. It's as simple as that. Like people understand that, but if you never understood how to like be a productive anything in society because you never had nothing productive in your environment, right? And you never participated in society or never was able to participate in society, right? Then what you expect? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, the reason that I first became interested in criminal justice reform and the whole space in general, I had never really had any thoughts about it. I wasn't justice impacted and didn't know anybody who was that I knew of. And I was reading a book, an autobiography of somebody who was in the Crips and served, I don't know, 20 to 30 years in prison. And he starts the book off with his childhood where he was 9 years old and his parents were not around, and every single person that he knew was in a gang. And so
Yeah,
at 9 years old, he left his house and he went to hang out with his friends, all of whom were in gangs.
yeah.
And so that became his life. And like the only thing I could do was think, like, what was I doing when I was 9? Like literally
Exactly,
whatever else everybody around me was doing. If my parents did something, I did that thing too because they took me with them.
exactly,
If my friends were doing something, if my friends wanted something, I wanted that too because that's what you do when you're 9 years old.
man.
And so if that's your life, then how the fuck are you supposed to get out of it? And it's so infuriating to me. I mean, you articulate these things so much better. Like when I say I was having that conversation with my friend about the reason that people get into prison, like I was raising my voice, and like he was like, I think of it as like having been like a heated debate. I was the only one raising my voice. I
Yeah,
think he was just like totally cool, calm, and collected. He was just like, no, no, like I don't believe you. I don't believe you. And I was like, why the fuck don't believe me? Do you not believe me when it's true?
but I
And
feel like
ultimately, like I
everybody
had to
was
pull
like that.
shit off on my phone.
I feel like everyone was like that to
Huh?
social media. I feel like everybody was like that with the black and brown community about police brutality until social media became like a thing where like you putting it all on blast, right? Like a lot of people didn't believe like the abuse that we was suffering in our community. A lot of people believed that we was putting it on ourselves. They wasn't believing that we was getting set up or getting shot for no reasons or we had our hands up when they shot us or anything like that. They're not believing none of that until they actually see it. So anybody that has any opinions about people saying that they are bad, I invite them to go into a prison. I guarantee you that I have never met anyone at all go into a prison and not be changed in a way to understand humanity. I've never met anyone. I've seen
Yeah.
a lot of people, thousands of people. I've took people in prison. I've been in multiple prisons, out of state, different places, right? And I've never seen anyone go into a prison and not come out changed and understanding that this is that what they seen and what they experienced while they was in it is not the solution. Well, one other thing I want to break because I think looking at the prison system as a problem that needs to be fixed, I think that's looking at it wrong also, because I think that if you're gonna say that prison needs to be fixed, in that same breath you're agreeing with you're saying, I believe you're saying that the foundation is strong enough and worthy enough to be repaired. And I don't think the foundation of why prison
Mm.
even got it created is a reason that it needs to be fixed. I think we need to reimagine something different. That's what I think. I don't think that it needs to be fixed. I think it needs to be a reimagining of something different, and understand that it's going to be over time, and it ain't going to be an overnight solution. It's going to be over time, and it has to be attacked in multiple different arenas because this system is not the prison system. People don't understand the prison system doesn't just extend to the CDCR. It extends all the way to the actual jails, the funding locally, all kinds of stuff. Like it's a lot of things that incorporate a lot of the different screws and bolts that keep this system going.
Yeah, I mean, it was like actually somebody who was interviewing me, criminal justice reform came up, and I was explaining to him some of the issues with over 60% recidivism, et cetera, school to prison pipeline. And he was like, so what is the solution? Like, do we get tough on crime and then make the in prison programs really good? Or do we start young with early intervention and prevent people from even going? And I just like, it was a mind-blowing question because like how do you even begin to answer that? So you're saying just like overhaul?
No, what I'm saying is, first thing you do is put the budget for education, put that part of the mandatory budget, not the discretionary budget. So any education institution do not have to fight for resources. They mandatory gave them to them, just like the judges, supreme judges, and everything else, and the FBI and everything else. They should be seen as equals, if not more, of value in this country. That's the first thing. I think that helps out with the education, the education system, but it doesn't solve the challenges that all the challenges it's gonna face. The second thing is that we really look at holistic ways of treating some of these situations, some of the issues that exist in this space of criminal justice reform, right, CJ? I think it's a lot of opportunity where people could be creative, people can combine forces to attack some of these issues. Like, for instance, right now, and this is just like very basic on the surface level. It's probably something that a lot of people don't know. Like, in the visiting rooms around America, like, women rarely get visits, and like 76% of the women are in there behind either defending themselves or their abuser or something that their boyfriend did. And that's a high percentage. So you telling me all 76% of those people are bad? You feel me? And don't deserve. I know women, a woman that didn't have nothing to do with anything. Her boyfriend threw something in the house, like a pipe bomb or something like that, exploded. Got 20 years. Got 20 years, and she's brilliant. She's smart as hell. Launched the app from inside of prison for
Oh
the
my
action.
God.
Launched it for Kansas Department of Corrections. The way that and she solved a problem that they had really inside the institution. All their family would go to the site. It's multiple sites for sending money, packages, visiting, booking, all that stuff. She put that all in one app so you can do everything in one place, and launched it, where it's on the Google store right now from prison. Now imagine if she had the right support. I've been saying it. I met her years ago, and I said from when I met her, I was like, "You're gonna be a CTO one day. Like, you that smart. You gotta have your own company. You're gonna be running shit."
Totally. There's like so much unused talent and creativity and innovativeness in prisons that's just like trapped
Yeah.
in there. What do you think are, because obviously upbringings have a massive impact on who you become. What do you think are some of the experiences that people who are maybe on the school to prison pipeline or coming from underdeveloped communities, what kind of traits does like that breed that translates to good CTO candidates, for example?
Man, resilient. You learn to use your resources. One thing about an engineer is that you have to learn to think quick, teach yourself something new really, really quick, and be creative, right? That's one thing that, like, a space that anyone that's formerly incarcerated grew up in, any kind of environment that like lack of resources, they forced to develop that skill. The other one is problem solving, right? They was kids, as a kid, they was given adult problems all their life. At some point, no matter what their percentage of wins or losses is, they have a lot of experience dealing with adult problems that wasn't even theirs, right? Which is exactly what a lot of data scientists do. They collect data and then deal with the problem that wasn't theirs, right? Sales. It's a lot of people that, because of a scarcity mindset, or because of struggle mindset, they feel like they need to. The best way for them at that time is to sell narcotics, right? Sell drugs, sell dope, right? But some of them make some of the greatest salesmen, and it's proven.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
proven with I can't remember her name. Oh, forgive me, I can't remember her name. She's formerly incarcerated too. She's the top saleswoman, been the top saleswoman in the last 3 years. She works for Microsoft right now, and she's the top saleswoman in the world. Or salesperson in the world, not just a woman, but salesperson in the world, beating all the guys out and everything. And she's formerly incarcerated. Where do you think she get her grit from? Where do you think she get it, like that mouthpiece, that gift of gab from, right? Being able to, like, I just seen some crazy inventions inside. People create like something out of nothing. So I think just
What's the craziest?
um, I seen bird cages out of like I just seen bird
Bird
yeah
cages?
I just seen bird cages out of chip bags. I just seen
What?
I just seen like statues out of soap painted with like coffee and like nice, like stuff that you think that like is like artwork. I just seen.
Oh my God.
I just seen all kinds. I just seen. It ain't nothing. I like. Put it the creativity. I'm more impressed with the creativity inside of prison than I have been with the creativity in the world. Because it's like
I can imagine because when you,
I just
yeah.
seen crazy stuff that you just get. Like I never thought you could make even like with food. I never thought you could make taffy all from Kool-Aid and coffee creamer. And I was just like, okay, how you
Oh
do that? I'm
wow.
like, how you do that? It just was crazy. So I don't know. I feel like it's a lot of people things. A lot of like those environments create a lot of great qualities of entrepreneur, which is why I'm like so focused on like really empowering folks to like take a skill set into a business. I think it was a lot of focus of us getting skill sets, and I think that's cool. I think we all need skill sets. I think if you need to start somewhere, you need to get a skill set. You need to figure out your passion. You need to figure out what your lane is, right? But once you get that skill set, once you hone in, I think that you need to figure out a way to like get paid off of having that skill set and not just get paid just for using that skill set. You feel me? Because
Totally.
one
Do
thing
you
that
feel like
technology
the
did, that prison never did was it gave me a way to get paid off of how I think.
mm,
All my life, I've always been getting penalized for how I think, and how I was think was based on I was basing the logic off of my experience in the data that I was exposed to, right? And so like now, technology is a place where like you really get paid for how you think.
yeah, that's incredible. An incredible way to put it. So, what do you think? Like, how can we move this forward and like all this energy and potential forward? Is it like funding into the right people, or is it better resources? Like, what is the most intuitive next step for you to make this to make people coming out of incarceration fulfill their potential?
I think it's two things. I think we need to have ownership too, like on ourselves. We need to take accountability ourselves as a community to understand that we don't know what to ask for when we like you don't know what you don't know, right? And so,
Right.
in some places, I feel like for a long time, a lot of folks that's been impacted, we've just been asking for a seat at the table because we make it that in our head that could make us feel equal or may feel us feel equal. But I don't think that's the ask anymore. I don't want it to be the ask no more. Not for our community. I don't want like any programs, any resources, any companies, any whatever when it comes to the justice impacted or the criminal justice space. I really think that we should have more ownership over it, and we shouldn't focus on trying to get a seat at the table, but controlling the menu. Because we can have a seat at the table, and I've been at the seat at the table, and they fed me poison before. So like that doesn't
Oof.
matter. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm more focused on like trying to control the menu.
I didn't really know how to frame this. I'll
Yeah.
need to like give some context for this question. So I had not a champagne problems type of turbulent childhood, and I found it and have found it extremely challenging to be around people and be patient with people who think petty stuff matters. And I've damn near smacked the shit out of somebody because she was crying at her graduation party because her father ordered the wrong dish. And
Mm.
so I am like constantly working on that, even as a 30-year-old. Still, like, I find it a challenge. And so I know that suffering is relative. Like, I don't want to compare things, but also like you've had it a lot fucking harder than I have. And so how do you keep up and like in just in the tech world, like what do you do when somebody is talking about their dog's shit not being the right consistency and acting as though it's a life threatening problem for them, like it's the worst thing in the world, like a tragedy? Like,
Yeah.
how do you be around somebody? And maybe it's just that I'm a particularly angry and hostile person and just have some unresolved shit, but like I fucking want to slap it.
No,
Like, I'm like, shut up, like what? Like,
I
you don't
get
have it
that.
so good.
I get that. I think it's different. I think everyone's different. Different communities are different. Their perspective is different based off of their experiences. I don't take things too personal anymore. I used to take things a lot of personal because I didn't have an understanding of how society in America was set up. And it wasn't until like I started traveling, I started understanding how America is set up for in this places where people really believe what they believe, and that's completely fine to a certain extent. If you're not open up to like getting more information and stuff like that, to challenge your perspectives, because I really believe for a very long time what I believe. I believe everyone in this world thought like me, it acted like me and would respond like me because everyone in my world did until I got outside of that world and I started
Right.
realizing like, oh no, I was tripping. I was talking to him and just I was tripping, right? Like so you don't get the experience. And so like
Yeah.
one thing that groups taught did teach us very well, taught me I know, is how to meet someone where they at. Like some of that stuff doesn't even matter. It don't even count to me. I'm gonna keep it real. Like some of that stuff people say don't even count to me. They don't even qualify, right? Because they're not even on my journey. They're not even part of my plan. And there's two things. It's like the thing that I could say to anyone that ever spent time in prison and that's gonna help you stay focused. Have a plan, because if you don't have a plan, they got a plan for you, right? And understand when you have a plan, there's gonna be people that benefit from your plan. There's gonna be people that's part of your plan, and you need to figure out the difference between the two. Because there might be people that's around you all the time that's not part of your plan, but it's benefiting, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like with situations like
That
that, you just like you have to understand where they at, and it don't even matter. Is the issue is way bigger
yeah.
than that.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I mean what I was really getting at more than like how do you not beat the shit out of somebody when they're being annoying is like how do you relate to people who have just such maybe more privileged or more cushioned backgrounds.
Okay, so
But
let's say this. Let's say this, right? So when I first came home, I got married, right? And my ex-wife, she was very different background. She's a white woman. I'm black. She law enforcement. She was part of law enforcement. I broke the law. Very different, right? And her family was law enforcement too. So like their perspective on things was very different, right? And it definitely was cultural differences. Definitely, even like going to like her house sometimes, there might be like some microaggressions that come up, and that's like irritate me. And there's times that we have to have conversation around that and everything else. But ultimately, like what I've learned is I just don't want to spend my time in spaces where my presence ain't appreciated or respected. So at the end of the day, like I feel like a lot of those things that you're describing, I got an opportunity to miss by just making better decisions on how where I spend my time and who I spend my time with.
that's fair. Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm slowly coming to that realization as I emotionally mature.
That's real. That's real.
When I first started my prison reform, criminal justice reform advocacy work, I was going to CFCF, current Fromhold Correctional Facility in Philly, once a week. And I went in with the best intentions, only wanting to help however I could. And I used the word inmate, convict, that type of stuff, completely without realizing that it was offensive and degrading. And it was a massive blind spot. And in retrospect, I see how awful those words are, but it was not intuitive to me. And so, first, what other sort of blind spots do you think that people who have good intentions maybe coming into the prison reform criminal justice, and is it bad that I keep saying prison reform instead of criminal justice reform? Like what is the right term?
I just say before. I just say before, because if you really think about like the
Just
like
reform.
yeah, if you think really think about the language, right? To say criminal justice, that's like an oxymoron, right? Like criminal, like you putting the criminal, you putting the word criminal first, and it's saying justice, like for this criminal. So you already sit here and saying he's guilty no matter what, and he needs justice, right? And I don't think that's the
Mm,
ideal of reform. I think the ideal of reform, this
right.
is how I understand it, is to really reimagine a different way of treating it, where it's not just focused on punishment, where it's really focused on healing, and not only just the person that perpetrated the harm, but also like it's almost like a restorative justice like model or reform is like kind of spinning off of, right? They trying to interject like ways to interject opportunities for to exercise restorative justice. So I like that's the reason why I don't use it, at least because it just doesn't make no sense to me. But I would just say like the like reform space or something like that. I understand because as I
Um,
said, like I
but
understand like what people is at in this world, and like it haven't been like it's not seen as a it's not seen in the same vein as saying like, oh, that's gay. Like that been shunned. Like saying that has been shunned and everything else,
yeah,
and it's because rightfully so. Like people fought for that. Like they really harmed a lot of people. So to say like, oh, that's a parolee or that's a people don't feel the same way about it. You feel me?
yeah. What are some other blind spots that you think people who are outside of the justice system have,
Uh,
even when they're trying to help?
like I said, I think the biggest one is that the system is broken. I think the system is working exactly how it's designed to be. I mean, it was built on the ideal of slavery and cheap labor, and that's exactly what it's focused on. We focus on the dollar return.
Mm,
I think if you want to solve some of the issues that existed with inside the prison or the system of prison, just pay everybody minimum wage. Pay everyone inside that's incarcerated minimum wage, and I
mm.
guarantee the system breaks. Right? They don't have it's built for them to have turnover on dollars.
Just to clarify for the listeners who
Yeah.
might not know, it's not that everybody in prison should get paid minimum wage for being in prison. It's that
No.
people who do jobs and
Yes.
work for corporations in prison get cents.
Yes,
So
absolutely. Like as
that,
low
yeah.
as 6 cents an hour. I got paid 6 cents an hour to work hard as hell in the kitchen, right? And they take 55% of that when you get paid. So I'm getting paid like $6 a month.
What?
Yeah, it was something crazy. You couldn't even buy a full case of soups with that. It was crazy, right? Yeah, but
Oh,
that's what they
I'm
expect.
sorry to interrupt.
That's all good. I wanted to tie the other two, what you just asked, and then tie in with something that um, we had touched on earlier. I think the other issue or the blind spot that a lot of folks have is that the problem exists in prison. Like they think like people are bad, and I don't think like the problem exists in prison. I don't think the people are the problem. I think it's a lot of like systemic issues that's creating these pipelines that's flooding prison and stuff that. And I don't think people understand the problem is not inside the prison. The problem is really outside of society of how we view each other and the systems that set up and how we use each other. And I think we understand that, like where the problem actually exists. Prison is a downstream solution. So when you ask, that's why it's so hard to like talk about it. And then reentry is even further downstream solution, right? So it's just like, okay, if you was going to start, you will have to start at the beginning of like attacking so many other social issues in order to even get to a place where you can start to attack this social issue, right? So it's just a lot of different systems from the school system to the healthcare system to like just the justice system. All these different systems have ways to pass bodies around, black and brown bodies around throughout the system, right? Like I said, I entered the foster care system at 8 years old, and I was passed around through group homes, foster cares, and everything else. So like when I went to prison, I was already prepared for prison. I already knew what to expect. I already knew what to expect. I already knew the energy. I already knew what time it was. I was ready. I was like, it is what it is. And I knew way before I was even going to prison, I was going to go to prison because everybody was going to prison. So I was like, man, I looked at it, it was like, okay, wait for my time. I'm Deshaun. It was like getting in the game. Like, okay, now I finally get in the game, right? That's how I looked at it. So, and then, when you think about it, that's crazy that someone young is looking
Yeah.
at prison like that. And you're looking at it as a challenge that you want to take on. Like that's crazy. But that's what that environment breeds, right? And then the same thing, take that competitiveness. That's why I'm so competitive in this space, in tech and everything else, is because the same kind of competitiveness I was with politics and gang stuff and everything else I bring into this space. The same way I believe wholeheartedly at one point in time, my block, my hood, whatever. Just I believe in the things that I pour myself into.
Is there anything that could have been done differently when you were young that you think could have disrupted the pipeline path that you were on? Like, what if a program came into one of the schools that you were at and tried to teach computer engineering? What
Um,
would
it
that have made a difference for you?
it depends how it had been received by me. It depends on like how they would have marketed it to me. If they would have came in and it was somebody that didn't come from where I came from and they didn't have a job in tech either,
Mm-hmm.
and they just knew about tech and they was teaching themselves, which a lot of programs is they don't like it's so like it would have to be something that disrupt. And then also on top of that, it's not just a program. Like you need people to be in your life. You feel me? Because it was like you can go to school, you can go to after school program, everything be good. You still got to go back home and deal with the bullshit. You feel me? You still got to go back home. There was times where I went to football practice and everything, and still had to go back home and cook everybody food and everything else because all my siblings was younger than me, and still had to take care of them and everything else. So it was like you still got adult problems when you go home. We didn't have no lights or nothing. Like it was crazy.
At the risk of sounding like a completely ignorant white girl, how do people go from being in impoverished areas to becoming multi-platinum selling rappers?
Interesting. Good question. How does people? Because combination of things. I'm around since I'm in an entertainment company, and some of the people I consult with, they like multi-platinum artists and everything. So I'm around people that's really in the life, that like the rap scene and the industry and everything. I'm gonna keep it real. Like, yeah, some people that they, I feel like it's the same as like how you start businesses, right? You can start a business and have great connections, and it's really easy to get your business, get great funding streams. You already know the people that you need to know, right? You might have a cool idea, but you know the right people that you need to bring in to make the idea like into something, right? Then you have some people that just get it off the muscle, and they just grind hard, and they just get off the muscle, doing whatever they can and get lucky because they was given enough time to get in and get out, do enough work to get out of it and make something out of it. You feel me? So it's just hard. I mean, we talk about multi-platinum artists, man. You talk about if you're a multi-platinum artist, especially getting it from the ground up, a lot of your fan base is local, and a lot of your fan base ain't out the country. So like you miss a big part of the market.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
you have to
like,
find
how did Snoop Dogg get to where he
well,
is?
you have to find other ways to make money. You have to find other streams of income. Like passive income is like the like that's like the secret. Like in America, like I don't know. I wish they would have taught us about passive income, like ways to create passive income, the value of it, right? Because I feel like with Snoop, with any successful artist, they're not just a rap artist; they're a brand, right? And they treat it like that. And they
Right.
have these other brands off their brand, and they partner with other brands that's aligned with their brand. So like I look at it just like the same as business. I think rappers that understood how to treat their life as a business became successful because of it, right? Because they was basing their decisions based off of their turnaround, their impact, their market that they're targeting. I think when you have a
Okay.
lot of talented people that don't get the success out of it, I think a lot of times it's just the infrastructure, the lack of resources, or just a marketing strategy. It's just horrible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, now social media makes it a lot easier to have good marketing strategy, I guess.
Yeah, it does. It makes it easier, but
Uh,
it's still kind of hard though. I feel like for people that don't
oh
even
my God.
understand.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's
No, but I'm saying like for people that don't
yeah.
even understand the importance of marketing.
Got it.
You talking
Got
about a
it. Yeah.
population that
No,
don't know nothing
totally.
about business. All they know is the hustle.
I mean, the hustle is a business. Can't, I guess those skills don't
The
they
hustle is the
translate,
drive.
but you need help making the connection.
I don't think the
Mm.
hustle is a bit. I think the hustle is the drive, right? I think a hustle is born out of
Yeah.
like this like a certain kind of mindset where business is like something that you can teach. You can't teach hustle. Like either you got it or you don't. You can teach
No,
business. Either you a hustler or you don't or you're not. You can be a good businessman and not be a good hustler. You feel me?
that's so true. I am both a good hustler and a good businessman.
I believe you're a good
Uh,
business person and a good hustler.
Thank you.
I
Thank
believe
you.
that. I believe that. Thank you.
Likewise.
Appreciate it.
What are some challenges that you have with your entertainment company? 'Cause you do a lot of events and stuff, right?
Yeah.
What is that like?
That was good. We just did one that Just Trust Fund, Facebook and Netflix and funded for the San Quentin Film Festival after party. That was pretty cool. That was in Mill Valley.
That's so fucking cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. It was the first. I got the hired subcontract a lot of my friends, folks that I was in prison with, and in different positions, and like start to upskill them, help them with their businesses. So like the impact of that was beautiful, right? We got a chance to hire, I think, close to like subcontract like close to like 22 people or something like that that's been impacted. Everyone, you know what I mean? So it was really really great. And it was the first time, from my knowledge, of um, an event of that magnitude, that size, all being put on by just people that's impacted by the system, like fully, all the way from security to the caterers to service to bartenders, everyone, right? So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
I think the challenges is really getting corporate America to not just see our community as a problem-ridden community, but a community of opportunity and opportunity to empower us. I think that I'm hoping that what I was able to show is in the same vein of like this ideal of fair chance hiring, diversity, all this different talks that happened in tech. I mean, it's so many organizations like the NBA, the NFL that have these social justice funds that want to make a social justice impact. But the thing that they do, they fund a lot of these organizations instead of funding companies also that people that's formerly incarcerated build? Like, what do you think that's actually going to do,
Right.
right? Like, who do you think they're going to hire? Like, I think like that's the challenge when it comes to entrepreneurship. I don't think that when it comes to the entertainment or anything like that, I feel like it's going to be a lot of work, which I'm prepared for to do, and I kind of already knew ahead of time, just to get like kind of like taken serious in this space. Because I think a lot of people, if it was like same thing with a tech company, if you have a tech company, it's all formerly incarcerated people, nobody gonna take it serious. A lot of people are gonna be like, oh man, they gonna be scamming us, they gonna be trying to rip us off and everything. Why would I send my, you know what I mean? They gonna have all these questions about things, right? So I think it's just like being able to like rebrand ourselves as a community is going to be the hardest part, right? As an because we talk about an entertainment company being, and we do everything in entertainment, a full suite of entertainment services. So, and we look at expand in different states. So I know we're going to expand. Next month we go into Vegas to expand to Nevada, and then we looking to expand it internationally also because I think it's a lot of opportunities internationally to expand and also build opportunities for not only folks to travel and experience more, which is I think is a key point. It should be something that's pillar in their reentry, but also like to upskill and show them how to make money in a remote world because we don't live in a like a world, the same world that we did before COVID, right? So like you can work and have a business in California and live out the world, out the country. I mean,
So when you're pitching clients or trying to get business, you are upfront, you position it as a company that's
yes,
founded and employs. Yeah. And you think, does that work to your benefit? I guess if people are trying to be more inclusive, like they need to put their money where their mouth is, right?
I'm gonna keep it real.
So it's a business strategy.
It's a business strategy. I feel like I go to those that believe in me, and they believe in me, and I done had this said before is that people trying to like make a prototype of me. So if you believe in me, then get the money to me so I can help my people and show them like some of the things that works for me, right? So I don't know. I think it's also understanding the business needs of those companies that you go to for funding or those people that you go to for funding is that's one big thing. It's really understanding their needs and their forecast of priorities of next year to 3 years, 5 years, stuff like that, and be able to have a plan to speak to those that length of time and scalability and what's the next step, what's the next thing. I think they need to see that kind of like thinking from us because I think that a lot of times we plan in the now. We because of like for instance, you might have the CEO come to your door and be like, "Hey man, you're transpacking today. You leave it out of nowhere." So now you got to plan and get everything ready. This and that. That's how we used to planning when we don't usually get enough time out. And it sounds crazy because all we got is time. But like nothing is for certain. Our dating for certain. Tomorrow's not for certain in there. So it's like hard to plan for tomorrow, let alone plan for 6 months. You feel me?
Right.
So you really don't get to learn that skill. And I think
Yeah.
that's the part that like a lot of investors look for in us that is completely missing or that we don't know how to articulate well enough. And I think that we get in there. And I hope that like they see that we get in there enough to kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah. What is one key takeaway that you want people who are listening to get from this conversation episode? I mean, you've given so many good points that if you were to summarize.
That if you want to help our community, help us build infrastructure. And what I mean by that, like, it's a lot of different communities and groups of people that they have their own barbershops, they have their places they go. Like if they came to America, they know where to go, how to get set up, how to get the life started. When we come to a society, it's like we come into America again, and we don't know how to get our life started a lot of times. And we're really just going off of what we hear and what people are telling us. We don't really have no experience on none of that stuff, so I think that's really hard. I think when it comes to investing, this is why again why I keep on like saying it like man, investing in our community is because the businesses that we gonna create. Like I helped my partner start a barbershop, right? And he hired someone else that's formerly. He had two other people that's formerly incarcerated. They got their barber license, and that's three people that's off the street that's working in the barbershop. They got their own barber, and they got their own products now. They got their online podcast, all this other stuff, and now they about to expand to another barbershop. And so everyone that come home that's in the Bay Area, where do you think they go to get their haircut first? They go to that
Of
barbershop
course.
because they know this barber, they know their experience, they know they can talk about their experience, they can talk about they gotta get welcome. Stuff like we need that kind of infrastructure. The same way that like when I came home, I never had an ID until I was 35. right? Before that, I always had a school ID or a prison ID. That's the only IDs I ever had, right? So when I got out and I went to the DMV to get an ID, I was embarrassed. They was like, man, you ain't never had an ID? Like, you 35? I'm like, man, I've been in prison all my life. They was like, oh, welcome home. We're going to get you right. That's what I remember. So now, ever since then, I refer all my partners
That
to
was your
get the
experience with the
ID.
DMV?
Yeah, that was my experience with the DMV, and they got me right. They was like, "Man, welcome home. Let me get you right." Right, and so that's my experience. Since that's my experience, that's why I tell all my partners. I tell them go to the same, go to Claremont DMV. They're gonna get you right. That's where they all go. That's why I did my test and everything else because they understand, like, just the different communication styles, the things that we may not know, the things that we may not even know what to ask for. They understand. They got a better understanding of it. You feel me? And I think, like, when I think about that, I think about, like, that's what we lack. We don't have no infrastructure at all. If we needed the resource, we would have to go to an organization and call somebody, and we don't really have. And since we already got to call somebody, I wish the people that we called was the ones that had organizations that understand the problem. Because if we call them, we call them for a reason. They understand the problem better than anybody else.
Sure. So, two things. You are the only person I've ever heard having a good experience at the DMV. And two, that makes a ton of sense infrastructure wise, because if you don't have the
Yeah.
foundation, you don't have
Yeah,
really
you'll be
any
lost. Your reentry is
yeah.
bound to whatever resource path that they want to lay out to you, and that sucks. That's the thing that sucks. All right, because you don't know enough about life out here to be doing both, to learn life and then also be like navigating all these systems. Right, it just can get overwhelming over
Yeah.
time.
And more funding needs to go into the space and to the
Absolutely.
people who've experienced the problems.
Well, I think they got a lot of funding. It just need to get there. Like, it's not really getting there. Like, the
Yeah.
NBA and the NFL said they had $300 million for social justice, right? And I know a lot of people that have been impacted by the
Whereas,
system. I have not heard anyone say that they, like, the funds that they had impacted them. So, like, I don't know.
yeah,
You feel me? Like,
that money has to be going somewhere. Who the fuck is
man,
getting it? Yeah.
Alameda County put $750 million into a project for mental health services for the last 3 years, and a big portion of that was for mental health services for people coming out of prison. I don't know not one resource that I can go to for free for mental health services. Like, where is going with this money? They put $41 million into housing, affordable housing for folks formerly incarcerated in Alameda County. I don't know one housing program specifically for me that can get affordable housing. So it's like a lot of that stuff don't, like, to me, it don't mean nothing. That's just like a political pacifier. Like, that's what it is.
Political pacifier. Never heard of that, but that's good. Okay, so where can people go to find you, and what are your companies again, so I can put them in the show notes for people
Absolutely.
to go to?
You go to our Instagram underscore everything entertainment, and then also disrupt to innovate. It's spelled like this, right? DISRUPT 2 innovate INOV 8, the number 8. Very complicated, huh?
Awesome. With the number 2, right?
Yes, yes, with the number
It's
2.
fine. I'll link it in the show notes.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was amazing, and I am really excited for people to listen to this.
Man, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Not just because it's my show, but because it's important.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Next time I come on here, I want to bring some people to talk about relationships in this space for real, because it'd be spicy.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, definitely. We will do round 2, 1,000%. I'll start preparing now.
Yes.
You too.
Yes, for real. All right, I got you. I appreciate you. All right.
Likewise. Thanks so much, Jason.